Welcome, and in this lesson, we're going to talk about how to host a website with an Amazon S3 bucket. Now, we're just going to go over the website concepts here and getting it set up. We're going to, in a later lesson, work on setting it up with Route 53 to work with an actual domain. And with that, we'll even use a CloudFront distribution. So what I have here is I have a basic index.html file. That's just a basic HTML page that says hello world. And we're going to upload that into our bucket. So first, we'll go ahead and go into the bucket we've been working with, and I'm going to go ahead and just upload that file. So I've selected my index.html file, and then we'll select Start Upload. So now we have our index.html file. Let's go one step back to our bucket so we can go and open up our bucket properties. So let's go ahead and go up to our static website hosting. What we need to do is we need to enable website hosting. We can also redirect it to another host name, for example, www.linuxacademy.com. So if we enable website hosting, it's going to ask us, what do we want our default index document to be? So I'm going to set that to index.html. And it's going to ask us what our error document is, which means the error document is what will appear when somebody attempts to go to the URL and the object file and that object doesn't exist. So we can name this error.html. And then we'll hit save. So now that we've done this, we've created and uploaded an index.html. We don't have to create an error document. In fact, we could just say we want it to be the index document. So if somebody goes to a file that doesn't exist, where there's a 404 not found, then it'll automatically serve the index.html file. Just like if somebody goes to this endpoint, it's going to serve the index.html file by default. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to pay attention here. This endpoint is different depending on the region in which you create your bucket. So you need to know how to determine this. You have Linux Academy Test 2015. That's our bucket name. Then you have S3-website. That'll always be the same. Then -US East 1. That's our region. That will vary based off of the region that we've created the bucket in. Then we have Amazon AWS.com. So let's go ahead and save this. We've enabled it. If we click on this endpoint, what do you think will happen? Do you think our index.html page will show up and say hello world? Well, it won't. And the reason it won't is because we have a 403 forbidden, which means access is denied. When there's an error, it attempts to display the error document, which is also index.html currently. But the problem is our error document also doesn't have permissions to be viewed publicly. So we still have to make sure that the contents that we're serving are viewed publicly. So to make this happen, I can go ahead and select Make Public and select OK. So then if we come over to our URL and hit refresh, it says hello world. Now if I'm in my URL and I go /index.html, that's our index.html page. That's the default index page that it's displaying whenever we go to our URL. And remember, we configured that in the website section underneath index document. That's what the index document does. If we had another document, we could go /whatever that document is. So for example, if we look in our bucket, I have a document in there called my document. So what happens when I try to go to /my document? Well, it's not going to show anything. The reason we're getting hello world is because of our error document. So let's just create a new error document. I'm going to change it from hello world to error didn't work. And I'm going to save this as error.html. We'll go over to our bucket properties again. We'll define our error document to be error.html and then hit save. Then we'll upload our error document. We'll go to upload. See, I've selected my error.html document, save, and then I'm going to also make it public because again, I have to make that public. I'm going to select automatically cleared transfers because I don't like seeing all of those. So if we go back and we're attempting to access this my document again, we hit refresh and then we refresh it. It might take a second for it to apply, but you see we're getting our error document. The reason we're getting our error document is because we said when there's an error, 403 permission forbidden, then display our error.html file. Now, the reason we got that is because this is not public. If I choose to make my document public, I can then come back over to my URL and hit refresh, and we're able to download the my document. If you notice what happened, The My Document isn't an HTML file, it's a document. So I'm able to download it. So I'm now able to send this URL to coworkers, to employees, and allow them to download stuff. I can even serve static web pages if I wanted to name and create HTML files. As long as I use JavaScript, CSS, or HTML, I don't have to do anything but use a website-hosted, website-enabled S3 bucket. And I can actually host those applications on Amazon S3. And again, one thing I would be very important of is understanding how this endpoint is generated. And really, you have your bucket name, .s3-website- your region, .aws.amazon.com. So that concludes it for this lesson. Go ahead and complete this lesson.